This is not so much a complaint as it is an observation. Following my last video on life is cheap, and the title was Life is Cheap, and Fukushima is in the title. Everyone that comes to my channel understands that. I would say, I'm not sure percentage-wise, but in terms of my motivation, the intent behind my making videos is to commune with people, feel a connection to other people out there that have an understanding, and this understanding is not primarily based on reason or intellect. It is a fundamental notion of our connection to each other, in a sense, and other creatures, beings on this planet that share this planet. And my observation is that on this last video, what seems curious to me is there hasn't been one comment, even from those solid, staunch supporters. I'm not complaining. Maybe it was too long. I don't know. But it's an observation that probably this is somewhat connected to the way of my work as a painter, as an artist, that the feeling of being ignored is nothing specifically. It's just part of my activity. The fact that I'm ignored, and I want to tie a few things together in this video that go back to the life is cheap idea and my own notion of what it means to be alive and how it is reflected. My understanding about who I am is reflected in the things that come back at me. And sometimes, not just because something feels as a negative in a way. Let's say, if like I say, I'm not complaining, but it is an encouragement. I know this doesn't make sense from the point of view that the material world supposedly rewards you with something or other when or the world out there appears to reward you, or there is some kind of sense of reward coming back at us when we are hitting the mark, when we're on, when something works. And I'm quite frankly encouraged as much by the silence or the isolation feeling in many ways, because it's not only the verbal physical connection that exists, but there is also something that is quite mysterious in terms of how we function. How, for example, I sometimes think it's a critical mass that develops just through my own vibrations, thought vibrations. This is not anything new. People have actually built their life around this concept, or build their calling, their inspiration is based on something that we communicate without wireless, the wireless devices, but it's still wireless. So I'm in a certain way encouraged, and I decided to make this video because to follow up on Life is Cheap. And my basic notion behind Life is Cheap is that we give up our responsibilities to be who we can be in its fullest sense. It's like what I've referred to as being aware of calling, and it can be as simple as just performing acts of kindness is a very, very high calling in my estimation. I find this to be a very high aspect of ourselves, to perform acts of kindness, for example, and it far surpasses the brilliance of the white coats, the Einsteins, and the Hawkings, and the Newtons, and the Michelangelos, and all the magnificent people that have gone before us. I would say that this critical mass of wireless communication is much more progresses, is of service, helps us to become to be encouraged to become what we could be. I was listening to a few people that make a lot of sense, and I'm going to follow up on Life is Cheap too. Things that don't make any sense actually may have a great deal of value. They don't make sense if our worldview is tied to some kind of a dogma. Let me footnote it, that it makes perfect sense to people. What I'm about to say will make perfect sense to people that are not tied to any specific kind of dogma. And it's a struggle to separate everything out there that exists for us. The physical material world presents itself to me in a very overwhelming way through experiences from the range of extreme suffering. And let's say, would I put death on that extreme suffering? No, not really. That's something else. But extreme suffering to extraordinary exaltation, like within a range of our experiences, that certain things make a lot of sense. And what makes a lot of sense to me, what I'm observing in the realm, if this materium out there, and YouTube is part of that, the communication going on, what makes the least sense are a lot of the facts that are presented to me by people that seem actually to be very well-meaning. And I'm noodling on this. Why does this disturb me? Why am I even offended to some extent by people who say the right things, but somehow fall short because I sense this level of dogma? And how do I myself overcome this frustration or this apparent this anomaly out there that even well-meaning people offend me with their presentation? I'll just give you an example of the person I listened to a little bit. Was a Plain Truth, who comes off very dogmatic. He actually alienated me completely when he proposed, or no, not even proposed, that he definitively said that nuclear pollution is a hoax. It doesn't exist. It is not a problem for humanity. Their chemtrails are, and GMO foods and all the other chemicals are a problem. And there is subterfuge here for me with a person that makes sense within my soul group that I feel is connected to me, but it basically, one fact he expresses completely obliterates his entire platform for me to come out with something so ridiculous. I mean, how can you explain that microbiological life no longer exists around within the exclusion zone in Chernobyl? I mean, on the level of normal function, there may be some sort of a bug still buzzing around, but fundamentally, 99% of microbiological life has disappeared. So how can you, and what event happened that might have been responsible for this? Are chemtrails responsible for that? I don't think so, because microbiological life still exists in my community, and they chemtrail us. They geoengineer us heavily. So it can't be that. Did they go and spray chemicals all over the exclusion zone in Chernobyl? Not that I'm aware of. What happened was a plant blew up and disseminated all its ugly toxic material. And this a Plain Truth guy who has gone back to the land and is living the life of an integral human being, I applaud him, can come out with something like this. So here's, I'm going, again, life is cheap, even though it represents itself in very, and apparently he loves life so much he quit everything in his previous existence. He was an advisor or some kind of analyst on Wall Street, and he packed his bag, sold everything, got married, adopted some child, and is living in the country and is living the dream, I guess. Except for the fact that he knows we're so fucked with whatever is going on around us. He makes a lot of sense in this way. But here's my point. My follow-up to the last video, that life is cheap, And the reason I am aware of this is in order for me to reach a level of meaning in my own life, there are some very fundamental aspects or things I need to understand and recognize for myself that actually make a lot of sense. And I'm not just saying intellectually here, it has to make sense on a very fundamental level. And this is not a reductivist way of looking at the world, eliminating everything and ending up in the one place. I think it expands for me once this recognition is functioning of the most fundamental aspect of whatever this mystery provides us with, which is also a physical world, the facts out there, the events that occur, everything that is happening around us is part of it, but it isn't the thing that makes me work in the sense of, yes, you can sit somebody down, tie them up, and torture them and extract information. But this is not something that makes us work. It has immediate, possibly even, some people may benefit from the suffering of others. Yes, but it doesn't really work in a collective sense. Do you follow my, okay, I've presented an extreme case where I see in inflicting the real world on our experiences, the facts, like the sense, like feeling pain and then extracting, it kind of, just see where I'm going here. My thought process that we're so attached to this physical world for good reason, but there is an underlying notion expressed by many people of wisdom and insight. And for me, what it comes down to is actually the practice of this understanding, what is the most fundamental essence within our life that needs to be in play for anything to make sense. And making a mistake is obviously, I make mistakes, we make mistakes, and we correct them because, like a friend of mine said, that's why we have a brain, to correct the errors and mistakes. That's why we have a brain. I even think it's beyond brain because we have, I'll refer to this again, this fundamental notion within us that we can do the right or the wrong thing. And as we proceed through this experience, we begin to stop explaining away when we do the wrong things. It's not that we don't know we've done the wrong thing. We explain it away with, I'm pointing to my head because apparently there is like a mass in there that is called a brain, that everything seems, for a lot of fact-oriented people, it seems to go back in there, but I honestly don't know the seat of this supreme intelligence within us that actually makes everything work. What is it that makes everything work? And it's not like any machine that functions a certain way. Why does anything work physically? I'm not interested in that at this point. I'm interested in something that is dysfunctional in us, that is screwing everything up, and it's not the facts. It's not the material world. It's something that is of an inner world. And my last video, Life is Cheap, is a reference to this dysfunction. That's something in people, even well-meaning people. I suspect this, a plain truth guy, has some notion of, although to say nuclear is a hoax is really, really pushing it for me. You can say a lot of different things and explain them away. But when you get this fundamental, what I call an extermination on this planet, and you're not connected to this with your heart center, there's something, in fact, I've discarded him, and most other people that are out there, like another one that a lot of people flock to for inspiration is Cliff High. I call him a spiritual grease monkey. He conflates everything. And he said openly, people, he's a libertarian. You can say whatever you want about him. He's not offended. So I'm glad, Cliff, you're not offended by me saying you're a spiritual grease monkey, because you have found a way to conflate the material world, pretending that it's something outside of that realm, but always referencing the material world as your basis, as your departure, as your platform. Your possibly even well-meaning, but it's not connected. So I'm saying, my contribution, my ideas, my hopefully what I've referred to are my paintings as inspirations rather than me giving you a lesson in the meaning of the universe. It's more a feeling of, geez, like I feel when I see a great painting. I wish I'd done that. That sort of a thing. And what am I going to do about it? I wish I'd done that and then just walk away from it. No, I think this is fundamentally the way we communicate is to inspire each other. So inspiration is the delivery system to lead us to ourselves, and it's nothing that I can say to you. If you perceive my presentations as something I'm telling you to do anything, that is a mistake. I'm not telling you that. Like this plain truth guy, he's telling you shit he wants you to do, right? I'm not telling you to do anything except one thing, and that is to be able to find, through whichever way that is. I mean, there's so many paths that lead to this resolution of eliminating the fundamental dysfunction in our life, and that is to find a part in myself every day that is connected to doing the right thing. And this will become, okay, it seems so simple. It seems so simple because we always attach this as a notion of thought and reason and intellect and reflection, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with that. It is a sensibility that is outside the realm of materium or outside the realm of a logic or thought. It is, I guess people have, I'm not crazy about this, but the gut, yeah, okay, fine. Whatever it conjures up in our minds that connects us to this sense of not being in this material world, but we're actually existing in some way in our acts that are the right thing to do. This is outside of the material world. Believe it or not, this is, yeah, it sounds weird, but yes, they're still acts, but they originate somewhere that is not connected to what we attach ourselves to in terms of our experience. Generally speaking, most people, 99 out of 100 people, generally speaking, function on this level of the material world. And it's such an important world because it reflects what we have accomplished in the inner world. So the outside world is merely a reflection of the level of dysfunction within ourselves, collectively and individually. So if our lives, still no matter what, are dysfunctional in an immediate circle or in an extended circle, it means we haven't come to a resolution on this elegant and exquisite aspect to our nature, which is not something that I will see, which is not something I would understand in other life forms or creatures. It's not my concern in that way because I have no idea what another creature may experience, although we can observe, and if you torture an animal or abuse an animal, you can see there are sensory perceptors in all creatures, even plants apparently. So just to follow up, and I think that when there is a sense that a person, let's say, who's listening to me on YouTube, who is active in some way and feels unrecognized or not appreciated, the higher that level of lack of appreciation, the more likely it is you're doing something right. And it's sort of the rewards are not material and physical rewards so much as there is a sense of satisfaction and well-being within this realm of having done the right thing. And I hope this makes sense, and it's a follow-up, and I'm not going to make this too much longer, but I'm going to keep making my own contributions, not just in terms of my work. I have a show coming up in Toronto, and I will put the work out there for people to see if they want to, and be undeterred in my commitment to do the right thing. And as a last note, I'm going to say once more, this is something I have my conversations in the morning with a really good friend, and we talk about stuff and get pissed off with each other at times, and I get frustrated and he gets frustrated. And I said to him, and this, after everything I said, he kind of dismissed it because he's really focusing on the idea of brain as the kind of aberration within us, like we're the same as all other creatures except the brain. And I said, it's not the brain, it's what I've been talking about the last 20 minutes. And I said, just imagine yourself that there is so much attention being paid to people recognizing the fault in others. And there is this notion of forgiveness in probably in all religions. There is a notion of forgiveness, but just think of yourself as primarily asking for forgiveness, meaning that you do not recognize the flaw outside, but you recognize that which I fall short from. I am asking you to forgive me, basically says you have no fault. And if each person was able to do that, then wow, what a magnificent experience this would be. That if most people began to ask for forgiveness rather than sitting on their high horse of being forgiving of someone else. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing that came up this morning. I thought I'd mention it.